If you've spent any time online over the past year, then you'll have seen this lens making the rounds throughout the image creating community. This is the Laowa 24mm Cine Probe lens. Laowa are a relatively new lens company, but they are starting to make some waves in the filmmaking community with their Cine lenses like the 12mm 0D, OOM, and of course the Cine version of the Probe lens. This Cine version features two gears for iris and focus control and can come with either an EF mount or a PL mount. This lens comes in a really nice metal case with a lens bag, a variable control cable for the LED light, and a regular USB cable for powering the light. We filmed a very short creative piece using the Probe lens, aiming it to be a very rough whiskey promo. We shot using the Cine Probe as our only lens, which personally I couldn't imagine many people doing, but for these tests we wanted to show off what the lens could do. We shot using the red Gemini in low light mode because of the Probe's f/14 aperture, which means you need a lot of light, which unfortunately we didn't have. This Probe lens isn't your ordinary macro lens. Unlike your more conventional macro lenses, which tend to be between 50 and 200mm, this lens is a 24mm. But what does that mean? Well, the fact it's a wider focal length means that the depth of field is increased, and when you pair that with stopping down the lens, you can get some very interesting wide-angle macro shots. It also has 7 aperture blades and can output an image circle large enough to cover full-frame sensors. The design of it is obviously very unconventional also. The housing is built solidly and weighs in at only 474 grams. The roughly 400mm long thin barrel houses their large array of 27 elements in 19 groups in a solid waterproof housing. Important though here, only the tip is waterproof, and it stops being waterproof when you hit the USB port here. The fact that you have such a long barrel gives you a great minimum working distance of 470mm. This is the distance from the close focus, which is 20mm, to the sensor. The lens has a focusing range from 2:1 macro magnification to infinity focus. That's interesting, as you can go from a unique 24mm macro lens to a regular 24mm lens in a one focus pool. Going back to the USB port, this is used to power the LED lights at the front of the lens. These lights are decently bright, so they may come in handy if you want to fill in some shadows. However, one thing to look out for is mixed color temp lighting and reflections from this. The light on our Cine version of the lens had a color temperature of 3828 Kelvin and a CRI value of 80, which is pretty low, and because of this, I can only see people using the light in dire circumstances. We also shot some more sciencey tests, so let's take a look. We shot all of the following on our Sony Venice in full 6K 3x2 mode. The bokeh on this lens is fairly round when you have enough separation to get bokeh, that is. One thing I did notice was the amount of onion skinning visible. Flare is almost non-existent when wide open at T14, apart from a tiny bit of starring. When stopped down to T22, you start getting a much larger star flare due to the tiny aperture. Considering the focus range, there isn't really a huge amount of breathing. For this example, we are showing the coverage on a red Monstro in full 8K full frame mode. Looking at close focus first, wide open, this lens only has very slight illumination fall off from the center towards the corners. This is reduced when you stop down. This issue is worse when you're focused at infinity. As you stop down, the fall off amount is reduced. In regards to sharpness and chromatic aberration, the lens renders fairly decently, but considering we are shooting at T14, it's definitely not the sharpest lens about. At T14, it renders well in the center, but it does lack contrast out towards the edges of the frame, and there is some CA present. T22 is extremely similar, but only a little bit cleaner in the center of frame. When you're using this lens towards infinity instead of close focus, the distortion is pretty noticeable. However, when towards close focus, it's nowhere near as bad. So, in conclusion, the Probe lens is an incredibly creative tool that can be used in a range of applications to get a unique and interesting composition you may not think would be normally possible. Given its relatively affordable price tag of just £1,332 plus VAT for the regular version and £1,499 plus VAT for the Cine version, this could be a great addition to your lens arsenal and make you think a little differently when working on that next job to try and create something a little bit different.